JT Show.
What's going on, you sexy beasts, and welcome to another episode of the Smash JT Show, my weekly variety show where I talk about divisive issues in the video game industry. And today, I want to get away from all the drama that's hit this week on YouTube and talk specifically about drama in video games, because I'd love to hear your opinion on them. This show airs every Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Before I waste any more of your time, let's just get right into it. In a previous episode, I talked about the Dead or Alive 6 game going into removing the large breasts, and this is something that has caused quite a stir in the video game community. When this news dropped from a GameSpot story, and when they interviewed the director of the series, and he said they want to make it more accessible to the Western audiences, and they want to remove the stigma of large breasts and just make it more of a generic fighter game so that more people can play it and that it lends itself more towards professional esports. And I had a big problem on this personally when I covered this, because I felt like it's taking a series that had a mainstay with large breasts and people knew what they'd be getting into trying to conform to what other games have been successful with instead of doing their own thing. And by doing that, it's gonna split their audience so much that it's gonna end up hurting them. But that's not even the biggest problem I had with this. When asked about the DLC and if the old costumes would be coming back for these fighters, the skimpy bikinis, they said that yes, these are going to be coming back as DLC. They'll eventually be there. And that's where I want to hear your take on this. Are you okay with the direction of Dead or Alive 6 going into more of a mainstream audience so that it can be competing in the esports scene? Or are you kind of frustrated that they're taking away what the Dead or Alive series has become known for just to be trendy, but yet they're going to be implementing the DLC down the road to bring back what the fans who love the series really want in the first place? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one. Next up, speaking of esports, they are in talks right now to get into the Olympics by 2024. A special team is being assembled for 2019 to figure out if esports could be competitive enough to become an Olympic sport. And they'll decide after the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, where the soonest esports could be in 2024. And this is just a really brief topic that I want to throw out to you guys, because I'd be interested in your take on this one. Do you feel like esports deserve a spot in line with all the other physical activity to become an official sport? Or do you look at video games as something that's not physical at all, it's all mental, where it shouldn't be in the Olympics because it's not technically a sport that fits in line with the other Olympic sports that are played? Let me know in the comments below. As far as how I feel about this, I'm pretty torn because I can see both sides of it, and honestly, I'm not a big esports guy. I've never really been interested in finding out more about that scene and learning more about it. I'm more of a sports guy. But I can see where the draw is to esports and why people enjoy it. So yes, I do see a place for it in the Olympics, and maybe that would increase the draw to it. But for me personally, I'm not really losing any sleep on this. I'm fine either way with the decision. But I do feel like it is going to happen because there's just so much money involved with it. It's going to be hard to say no to all that incoming cash. But then you wonder what games are going to be allowed for the Olympics. How do they decide which ones are going to be Olympic sport video games, which ones are not going to be allowed, and if that's going to change every 4 years, or if it's going to be a mainstay forever, or if it is going to change, how often is it going to change? There's so much stuff that goes into this. It's really hard to come up with a solid answer on what you think's going to happen in 2024. And for this week's smashing video of the week, we have Riff from Superhero Game Squad, or should I say Aaron from the NES Pursuit. The NES Pursuit is back, everyone, and this is for people who weren't familiar with the series before. Like me, I've recently gotten into it and am addicted. If you're not familiar with it, these guys go around to thrifting, they go to shops, they go to stores, they try to find all this cool stuff at good prices. They give you background on the games, they give you background on stories, series, TV shows, movies. They talk about everything. They have a good time. The edits are on point, and it's so much fun to watch these episodes. In this episode specifically, called the Swap Meet Trust, episode 78, they start out by going to Toys R Us to buy something for one last time and are disappointed to find out that the store has already sold out and is closed. And from that, they get into some crazy antics at the swap meet. Strongly recommend you check these guys out. They're very similar to the Game Chasers, but they also do their own unique spin to it. So thank you guys for putting this together. I am enjoying every moment of them.
We're back. We're back.
I'm getting more tempted and more tempted. This gray and green one is one of my favorite designs of the Xbox One. All right, so
You one of this too.
we were gonna walk out, but
I got that
it's
one.
been
That was
haunting
awesome.
me all day. I always want to get controllers, good Xbox One controllers, and they still have them. So for 25 bucks each, we had to come back.
Next up, we have Nintendo in the news again, where a senior executive from Nintendo, Susuma Tanaka, was quoted as saying during a recent investors meeting that they're looking to release 20 to 30 new indie games every week. Yeah, you heard that right. That's a lot of indie games that will be coming to a system on a weekly basis. And I have some major concerns and fears with this because it harkens back to WiiWare and the shovelware that the Wii actually had coming out for it, even on the disc base. How much crap came out on the Wii, how much shovelware, how much stuff that really devalued what the games for the system were coming out for. How confusing was it ultimately to dig through the pile of crap to find out what was worth playing and what wasn't. Opening the door for all these games to come in on a weekly basis, it's intimidating for someone like me who tries to play as many games as possible to keep up with the times and keep up with what's going on. I'm all for more games, but at the same time, I'd like a little bit of control on what's coming out on it, if it's good and if it's not, because we know firsthand there are not enough publishers out there in the world to make 30 quality indie games on a weekly basis. That's just not feasible. But again, I want to throw that out to you guys. Are you okay with this coming from Nintendo? The more the merrier with their games? Or do you wish they had a little bit more quality control going into this and they weren't so quick to rush to the, we want as many indie games every week coming out for this as possible? Be interested on your take for that one. And finally, I want to continue with the Nintendo news to talk about the NES Classic restock. Everybody is ecstatic that these things are back on store shelves and pretty much plentiful supply, and I was able, like you may have seen, to get a second one from the second run of these in 2018. The problem that I had with it is it's the exact same thing as the original 2016 NES Classic, and this is where my question lies on this for you guys out there. Did you want the revision to be exactly the same as the original print run of NES Classics? Or do you wish that they updated it to make it better and fix the mistakes that the original run had? And when I say mistakes, I mean the cords are way too short. It only comes with one controller, and other separate controllers are, for some reason, an extremely limited supply. Would you have preferred Nintendo to maybe raise the price another, we'll say, 10 or maybe even $15 if you want to account for the increased price of wires, for the second print run of NES Classics to sell for $15 more if they had fixed the cords being longer and have another controller? Or are you happy that they just made more of these? Even though it's the same thing, you don't care, you just wanted the same one. Because for me, personally, I'm not that happy with mine. To be honest, I can't even play it on my TV because I have it hooked through an entire surround sound system, and because the soundbar is there, the audio cuts in and out. I have to sit like 3 feet in front of my TV with it. It's just not useful for my purposes. It may be useful if I maybe take it out to a hotel when I go traveling, but as for my home purposes, there's really not much of a use for this thing. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say about it, if you prefer the original run or if you wish they fixed it in a second run. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode. Again, if you enjoy what I'm doing here and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you want notifications, hit the notification bell, and hopefully YouTube works with that. If you enjoy the Smash JT show, come back every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. I also make other content throughout the week. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys stay sexy.